Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good, Conrad. Hope you are too. Thanks, folks, for tuning in. We got a lot of your questions, a lot of questions here. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. And if we don't get to yours, then blame Conrad and his team, not me. We'll get through as many as we can. And I like these shows. Conrad and I were talking before we started recording. These are fun shows to do because it kind of gives us a pulse what you guys are thinking and what you're interested in. So we'll try to have some fun with this thing too. So it's been a what a week.
It's been an interesting several weeks. You know, you and I guess we should give a peek behind the curtain. We actually recorded last week's show before the big AEW pay-per-view, and I traveled down to Jacksonville, and we had an opportunity to record some very special bonus stuff for adfreeshows.com. How'd you feel about that stuff we put together, Jim?
Oh, it's great. I think it'll be one of the coming off the heels of your interview with Jimmy Crockett, which I watched in its entirety, and congratulations to you and everybody involved. It was just really a phenomenal piece of business. Loved it. Encourage everybody to watch it if you can. It's a history lesson. It's a history class.
Yes.
From somebody that was there and was writing that history with Jimmy Crockett. And, I enjoyed what he said about me because he didn't knock me. He said I worked hard.
Yep.
I always was honest to him. And that was very self-gratifying, to say the very least, that he would have remembered that I was always loyal and hardworking. I don't need a pat on the back on it. It's what you should do. That's your job. You do good. That was good. The stuff that we taped, can we say who's on it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Conrad rented an Airbnb about 88 miles from Jacksonville. And I had a Eastern European Uber driver that took us 2 hours to get to Conrad's place. So needless to say, Red Ass JR was there. And then we had a couple of cocktails, settle things down a little bit. It was Conrad, of course, at the head of the table, Shivani, Bischoff, myself. Anybody else? That's it, right?
Eric Bischoff, Tony Schiavone, and Jim Ross, man. Who else do you need?
Nobody. And we had a big table, big community, like lunch table, dinner table, whatever. And we just shot the breeze. Conrad kind of pitched it out there and kept us between the lines. It may have been, well, I'll just correct that. It was the most fun thing I've done on the Ad Free Network.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was the most fun thing I've done. And people are going to say, oh, they were all drunk. Well, we weren't all drunk. We were drinking. But it was just one of those deals where you just get enough booze in you that it kind of loosens everybody up. And, nobody was falling down, or there was no fighting, or, we just had fun. We laughed. Just more laughter than anything else. We laughed at our own shit. And it was just funny. It's just entertaining as hell. So I don't know when that's going to drop. I don't know what it's going to be called. But when it happens, I really encourage you guys to watch. You'll laugh your butt off. You'll hear some information that's probably going to be new, quite frankly, because we covered everything, and it was just a blast. I was really glad to be a part of that, Connie.
It was outstanding. You stole the show, and Eric Bischoff says it's the funniest thing he's ever been involved in wrestling. He couldn't catch his breath while we were recording. Tony Schiavone had to take his glasses off and wipe the tears away from laughing so hard. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's coming out in April on adfreeshows.com. And then as we march towards WrestleMania starting next week, I guess we can go ahead and reveal here. We've got alternate commentary from you and Tony Schiavone calling some of WrestleMania's most iconic matches. That's going to be a pretty fun experience for fans who want to go relive some of those major WrestleMania moments, is it not?
Yeah, we did a little commentary, a little play-by-play. Tony and I did. And we did Savage and Steamboat. I think we did Lesnar and Undertaker. And the ladder match in WrestleMania 10 was Michaels and Razor. And there's play-by-play in it. It's hard to do it. We recorded here at my house, both sitting on my couch. So we didn't have headphones. It's hard to do play-by-play if you can't hear yourself. But we did the pieces of business justice. Tony and I laughing and doing commentary and being serious for a while and trying to call the action and all that good stuff. So it was really fun. I had a lot of fun doing it, quite frankly. It was just, I hope folks will enjoy it. I think they will.
It's going to be a great WrestleMania tradition that we're going to try to build. And of course, we're not too far from WrestleMania, but we're also not too far removed from AEW's Revolution. By now, the preliminary buy rate is out, and it appears to have set a record for AEW. But you and I, at the start of last week's show, said we'd talk about it next week. Again, because we were putting that show in the can before the show actually happened. Now, with the benefit of hindsight and the follow-up effort from Dynamite that aired, where we heard from Jon Moxley and we heard from Kenny Omega, what was your takeaway from the Revolution pay-per-view, where we saw Sting in action for the first time in a long time in that cinematic match? We saw the announcement of Christian joining the new league, and of course, Big Show now is with you guys as well. And oh, by the way, the exploding barbed wire death match actually happened, and Meltzer said it was, up until the final explosion, perhaps the best exploding style match in history. What'd you think?
Well, I can't speak to that as well as Meltzer can, because he's thoroughly watched all those matches, because I guess many of them originated from Japan. And Meltzer's probably the foremost expert on wrestling things that happen in Japan that I know anyway. I thought the pay-per-view, exclude the last 30 seconds where the big explosion was supposed to go, and it bombed. It was a malfunction of the pyro. And the irony of that is that they had, because of all the fire marshal and safety precautions and so forth, they had run through that several times.
Right.
The explosions. And they worked great. Boom, big, great. Just what we needed. And then when it came showtime, you never know when you're doing live television. McMahon always said nothing could go wrong when you're doing live TV. Well, there's an exception or two. But nonetheless, I think I really love the pay-per-view itself. If you can exclude from your mind as a viewer, if you can get off that hill of just talking about one issue, and that was the malfunctioning pyro, then I think most of you are going to say it was a pretty damn good show. I thought that when you're working in a ring like Moxley and Omega with barbed wire around and all the gimmicks. By the way, our man Bull Ramos, aka Dave Silva, sent me some nice swag.
Oh, good.
I didn't know that box of gimmicks store. That's a hell of a place, man.
Go ahead.
That's where it came from, right? Box of gimmicks.
Boxofgimmicks.com, man. We got lots of fun stuff over there, as you just recently found out with a special delivery. Yeah,
it was great. It was really great. So anyway, I thank you guys for sending me that stuff. But I thought the show was strong, except for that miss on the pyro at the end. If the 30 seconds at the end is going to be your own sole and only criteria, folks, of whether you like the show or not, whether it was a good show or not, you might be just in my opinion, you might be overanalyzing just a little bit, because the matches before, all the stuff leading up to that, I thought was strong. I thought it was strong. So I enjoyed the pay-per-view. And as you mentioned, it did good. I think it did record business.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, well, it only did business because of that barbed wire match. Well, then we should just have the barbed wire match that had nothing else.
Right.
And that, using that logic. So I thought it was good. And I enjoyed the hell out of working with Excalibur and Tony on that show. So I don't know what more to say about it other than I enjoyed it. I was I'm sure the talents, I know they were. I talked to them. Very frustrated because they worked their ass off.
Yes.
Getting pricked with barbed wire from head to toe. And so now all we're talking about is not their work, not their effort, not what they put their bodies through. The malfunctioning pyro becomes a story. And to me, that pay-per-view was much more than just the pyro, the gimmick at the end. But that's just me. And I'm biased too. I'll just have to admit, I work for AEW. Tony Khan takes care of me, and I'm happy to be there. But we've got to be somewhere along the way. We've got to be objective. It was a failure, a pyro failure.
Right.
I don't believe it was a wrestling failure whatsoever, not even close. So other than the pyro situation, Conrad, I thought it was the best pay-per-view we've had.
Let's talk about Christian. Big debut for him. Tony Khan had promised a Hall of Fame caliber talent and one of his favorite wrestlers. And the big announcement was Christian. That was just a few days after it was announced that Paul White is going to be joining the promotion. We saw him make his Dynamite debut, and Paul even teased Christian's pay-per-view appearance. What'd you think? You've got two former WWE legends now on the AEW roster.
Well, what we brought into the locker room was two veterans.
Yep.
That should be able to help our young roster. And a lot of people don't understand that as well as perhaps they should. I don't know that how many matches Tony Khan plans on using Paul White for. I have no clue. But he's got himself in pretty good shape. He's dropped a lot of weight, which is good for his just general health. But I think what we're looking for from those guys is there's some name identity there. There's a tune-in factor there. If nothing else, a curiosity aspect of that component. But I do believe that, and I've always believed in this. That's one of the reasons I was able to get Mick Foley signed way back in the day, was that we needed freshness in the locker room from positive examples of people. And Mick was certainly fit that bill. There's no reason that guys like Big Show, and Paul White, I'm glad I just said it on TV, boy. We were given explicit instructions, but sometimes habits are hard to break. Of
course.
And of course, I could tell you that from the minute Christian got on in our compound, he was talking to talent.
Awesome.
And he was coaching up. And he was giving guys great pointers that were, very objective and beneficial. So I think that the additions of those guys are positive. It's not the old deal. Well, they're just taking WWE cast-offs. That's a defiant, easy way to put it. But I just don't believe that to be true. These two guys, they're both mature guys, north of 40, that want to contribute. And they know that they can develop that other skill set, what we've been talking about here, in the locker room, with the talent, coaching them up, being positive role models, and helping them. That's where their great values going to come in over the long haul. Short term, I think, especially Christian, he's ready to go, and he can illustrate his teaching and his philosophy so much better if the talents watch him work. So I'm very happy we got both those guys on board. And maybe not for the exact reasons that many of the fans are thinking. How many great 5-star matches can they have? Hell, I don't know.
Right.
Nobody knows. But I know that I've seen with my eyes that they can help the talents with their experience and their maturity. And so I'm excited about that aspect of it, to say the least.
Let's talk a little bit about some other news and notes before we jump into Ask JR Anything. That's our topic today. You get to ask Jim Ross anything you want. If you want to participate in next week's episode, it's easy. Just follow us on Twitter at JR Grilling. Jim, one of the things that I've wanted to ask you, that we've gotten it a lot on social media, I'm sure you have too. What do you think of the announcement that Johnny Ace is coming back to run talent relations for WWE? Of course, that was your old seat, and he was the heir apparent behind you, and it felt like his days were done in WWE, but now he's back in a big way.
Yeah. Well, good for him. You know, everybody deserves the right to feed their family. And, I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, but he had been working there. I don't know that he ever got off the payroll. He may have, I don't know. Don't care. But he may have been, I know he was doing some agent work, producer work. Everybody's got a different name for that. It used to be agents. Then they became producers when WWE went, show business side.
Sure.
We call them coaches at AEW. It's just different terminology. They all do the same shit. So he did that, and I was surprised. To answer your question directly, I was surprised that he came back in that role. I don't understand, and you probably have a better feel for it than I, what their exact management chart looks like. I don't know. I think I read where Laurinaitis reports to Brad Blum, I think, and Brad came in as Vince's assistant, kind of like an executive secretary type thing. He sat the same desk that the women had sat and become Vince's assistant. He's grown more into that role, former military guy, military officer. So Vince likes the Brad structure. But I don't know how all that hierarchy works. I don't know if Laurinaitis has the autonomy to hire talent or fire talent. More likely not, probably not. But I don't know that. I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I did talent relations differently than Laurinaitis is going to do it because I'm a different person. And I was doing it at a different time. I was just reminded that I had that job. I got replaced in 2004, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it. I'm okay.
Right.
I did all right, but I was surprised, and I hope he does well. It's just going to be interesting to see how. It's just more bureaucracy to me. I don't know how much sludge there is in that at the top of that to get the decisions made and things of that nature. But it was a little bit of a surprise. Don't want to say I'm shocked, because nothing they do, they're shocked and shocking. And I think it also says something to the fact that there's not a lot of people out there with the overall management and experience and product knowledge for those type roles.
Right.
And there's where guys need to start paying attention. There's where a guy like Christian Cage or Paul White need to start paying attention, because you get an opportunity here to fill some voids going forward. As AEW grows, they're going to need more management people. They're going to need more people that can help herd the chickens. So, and it'll work out fine. I don't wish any ill will on Laurinaitis, whatsoever. I thought he did some things that were not exactly reputable, but if I were in his position, I'm not going to tell you, Conrad, that I would not have done the same thing. I'm going to watch out for mine, and whatever that takes.
Talk to me a little bit about the news that Andrade recently allegedly asked for his release, and there's been reports from Dave Meltzer's website that release was denied. It feels like the WWE roster is larger than ever. I don't think Andrade's been on TV for, 5-6 months at this point. Are you surprised that folks are asking for their release again, that that's a thing in WWE, given that we still are in a bit of a pandemic and we're not exactly running live shows like we might normally? And were you even more surprised that WWE didn't just grant the request?
I am surprised during this climate, COVID climate, that people are asking for their release.
Right.
I don't know who else may be or not. I don't know. You damn sure don't want to ask for a release unless you got somewhere to go and where you can establish some stability and financial security. And I don't know that he has that or he doesn't have that. I'm not as familiar with his work, Andrade's, as a lot of guys are, because I don't watch very much. I watch some, don't get me wrong. I don't watch as much WWE TV as probably people would expect. I have different viewing habits now. I'm not going to watch a 3-hour Raw. I'm not going to watch a 3-hour anything unless it's a football game. So a little surprised. To me, it's, unless you thought it out and you got a good long range plan already in place, it's probably not the smartest thing to do. If it's an act of defiance or an act of I'm angry or I'm disappointed, whatever the case may be, then that's probably not the right reason to ask for a release, especially if you don't have somewhere to go. So I don't know where he would go. I can see WWE. It recognizes. To me, it says that WWE is keenly aware of AEW, and that we're not that pissant company that Triple H said we were going to be in the beginning. So I don't know. If I were him, I hope he's thought it out. Look, right now, the most significant thing in his career is a timeline. Pardon me. Is he's dating and living with Charlotte. That's his claim to fame. He is a good worker. Don't get me wrong. He looks great, but right now he has to distinguish himself. He's another guy,
right? Very
talented other guy. That's just me now. Would I like to have him? Like to work with him someday? Why not? But I don't know. I'm a little surprised that these guys are on salary basically, Conrad, because there's no live events to make extra pay-per-view money or make extra paydays. So I don't know how. I hope he's thought it through, and I'm not surprised that WWE refused it, because that allows them to not make him happy or another company happy, and they don't give a shit if he sits home till the contract's over. And if you're gonna dig yourself a hole, be ready to step in it. And I think that's kind of what he's done. He's played those cards. You think he endeared himself to the decision makers? I don't. And his biggest card right now in his deck is the fact that his significant other is one of WWE's greatest talents. And that does carry some weight.
She was in the news this past week too, for something that you'll probably be into. I don't know that you've seen, but it was announced that she had an offer on the table, and it looks like it's going to happen, where she's essentially going to play the Buford Pusser role from the old Walking Tall series. Yeah. And we saw, of course, famously, The Rock remake that movie, gosh, nearly 20 years ago now. But I guess the WWE film division is going to invest in her as the central figure. I just have a feeling that was one of your favorite stories, and I can't wait to hear your take on them trying it with a lady in the lead role.
Well, it's unique. I'm very interested in it. I'm curious. I'll watch it.
Sure.
It was one of my favorite movies. You know, I'm old enough to say that I met the original Buford Pusser.
Wow.
You know, he was an indie wrestler. Buford was, and he came back and became county sheriff there in Tennessee, and it was wide open. He didn't carry a gun in the early days. That's where that stick got famous. And I met him one time, the only time, and I think it was either Greenwood, Mississippi, or Greenville, Mississippi. I can't recall which two. And it was at a mall, and he was doing an appearance, lack of a better term, signing some autographs or whatever. Big crowd. And I was there with some other wrestler, and I'm trying to think who the hell it was. It might have been Akbar or somebody. Skandar Akbar, but we were just killing time. You know, sometimes you get those towns early, you couldn't check in, so you go to a movie or something. So when you're on the road every day, which we were, so I met him, and he was very cordial. You could tell he'd been in some rough scrapes, because he was, you know, he got shot. He's all screwed up, but he was a typical good old boy, and big old rangy guy. You know, you could tell he was fearless. but he was a cool cat in that respect. We're just lucky we just stumbled onto him, and he kept saying he's still a big fan of wrestling, and guess what he wanted? He wanted to be booked.
Right.
Hey, tell that Watts guy I'm available. We'll tell him.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, but I'm happy for her. I thought she did well. I do watch the Steve Austin shows. Because of 30 minutes or hour? What are they?
Yeah, they're 30 minutes. And
30 minutes.
I was under the impression that, or I think I actually read that her episode did the best ratings of the season. So she's a draw.
Absolutely. And I watched that. I watched all his episodes. I really liked that episode with her. She seemed like she was relaxed, having fun, not under anybody's thumb, not looking over her shoulder. No, look, even though you become a big star, that doesn't give you the autonomy or the freedom to say whatever the hell you want. It doesn't.
Right.
Because like I said, WWE's got plenty of money, and they sure got enough money to sit your ass at home, no matter what you're making. And while you're sitting at home, opportunities like this come along, and you're home, and they're not going to reward you for your behavior, your conduct, or their perceived lack of professionalism with a movie role.
Right.
You're SOL, shit out of luck. So you want to stay active. You want to stay on the good graces of the team. So they're more than willing to use you. And, but I'm happy for it. Walking Tall is a cool deal. I'm happy for her. I'm just trying to figure out how she's going to get a role for Rick.
Let's talk about some other news and notes. Since you and I have done a Q&A style show like this, there's been some interaction with New Japan talent and AEW. Jason Thompson has a question. He says, Jim, what are your thoughts on New Japan as a company from when you were there? And would you like to see a New Japan versus AEW cross promotion event down the road?
Well, I had great experiences working with New Japan. I actually worked for Access TV. Mark Cuban hired me, and got to be friends with all that crew. Doing voiceovers in a little studio with Josh Barnett was different and fun. But my experiences are always very professional. I had a little accident there with Jay White and somebody. Who was it? That kid?
Yeah, they keep crashing right into your table, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't their fault. But the ring was set up erroneously. The barricades were not hooked together. They're just standing there. So they would hold back a child. It was a safety hazard. And, God, I didn't know that they were going to come roaring into my table. And I was very lucky, to be honest with you. But, they took care of me as far as, they were apologetic. And the president of New Japan and I talked, and he sent me a nice letter, and they acknowledged their screw up. So from that standpoint, I didn't have any issues with New Japan. The great thing about this is that, I don't know if you know this, Conrad, but I do not speak Japanese.
Really?
A lot of people think I do, but I don't.
Okay.
Especially if you watch closed captioning in my commentary.
Right.
You might think I'm speaking Japanese, but nonetheless, when I got to work, I didn't, when I did Wrestle Kingdom 9, I don't know if they knew that for sure we were going to be there, because we do a 4-hour pay-per-view. You don't hear one word from anybody in our, we got in our headset. We got four formats, but they're written in Japanese. Okay. So we just had to kind of, who came out. So we worked. I worked with Matt Striker on that show. But as far as the people were concerned, they were really cool.
Right.
Good people, professional. And I got to I made friends. So Okada's a friend of mine now, and we communicate. And, I got to see some of the greatest workers in the world do their thing. They were loaded with talent. They're like any other wrestling promotion. Some of their top talents are getting old. They got to find new talent to get over new talent. But I enjoyed it. I don't know, it's a big thing to bite off to say we're going to have what would you think about having a co-venture. First of all, most talents now in AEW, I believe this, would not want to travel to Japan due to the COVID. I think it also works the other way. I'm not sure the Japanese guys want to come here due to the COVID. I sure as hell wouldn't want to travel anywhere internationally with the COVID thing. So I don't think it's a thing that could happen anytime. But to say it'll never happen is probably not accurate either. So I think Tony Khan's a big fan of that New Japan style.
Sure.
So if he could pull off something, then I think he would. But nonetheless, anytime you get quality talents, one or two talents, can you imagine coming in and doing a Okada versus Omega AEW title match on pay-per-view?
Oof, that'd be big time stuff, man.
You don't need to have a co-venture. You don't need to have a intermingled card. You just need one or two attractions that creates one or two great matches that are must see. I think the exploding ladder, the exploding match, barbed wire match, death match. Thank God nobody died. I've never been called a death match. Anybody died, which is really lucky. I got my streak still intact. So you don't need to bring the whole crew over, because then you get into more politics. Well, my guy's got to go over this one because your guy's going to go over in that one. And, well, you give him 10 minutes. This guy's got to have 15 minutes. You get all this fucking negotiations over egocentric related topics. And the last thing I'd want to do if I was Tony Khan is get involved in something like that.
Right.
If it's politically cool, everybody's happy with their role, you establish what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, before anybody gets on an airplane, and you have an understanding, then yeah. But there's a lot of steps to take for that. It's a fantasy thing. I understand the question, but I don't think it's around the corner. And as soon as I say that, boom, we have something happen. But I don't need the whole crew. You know, you give me Okada, Naito, maybe a couple more. I don't need anything else. Why? All you need is one guy. This is a pay-per-view made for Okada, and it wouldn't kill me to see Okada and Omega go hour Broadway.
Wow.
Hey, I used to do this booking thing for a living.
Hey, let's talk about the one guy. You talked a little bit about politics, and I just need the one guy. A lot of people think this is possible because one guy is no longer running New Japan. Did you ever have any interaction with Harold? I think
Yeah.
What was your experience like with Harold?
Good. But he and Okada did get along.
I see.
And as the wind blows, the Okada wind, so blows the wind in New Japan. He's the guy. He's the guy. He's their Inoki. He's their Baba. He's the star. And they book him very smart. He's not force-fed and all that stuff, but the audience and the experts know that Okada's the guy. And so like I said, if you want to have a New Japan AEW interaction, one way, there's probably plenty of ways, but considering the political landscape is all level, Okada versus Omega for the AEW title is something that could be pulled off without, buying 20 plane tickets and getting guys, housing and all this stuff in a COVID scenario. So I don't know. I always have to see what happens in that deal. I'd be very intrigued if it did happen. It'd be fun. I think that could be one of our next big pay-per-view numbers, like this last one was, Revolution.
Well,
we'll see. Time will tell.
It's interesting to see how different Tony Khan's approach has been to, relationships with other promotions compared to Vince McMahon. We've seen now the NWA have a presence on Dynamite, Impact Wrestling, now New Japan. Is that refreshing to you, or do you sort of tend to think like the old man and think, why are we doing this?
Well, I think it's refreshing that wrestling organizations cooperate with each other, Conrad.
I do too. I love it.
I don't have any issues with what Tony Khan's doing whatsoever, because look, if you give a shit about pro wrestling, you're not going to dwell and invest a lot of your quality time of your life on the pyro didn't go off. You're just not.
Right.
Come on. Okay, it was a hot topic. I understand the defiance on Twitter and so forth. I get it, and I'll probably get lambasted for it here because these guys they pull our little bites that you and I do on this show, and they use them for leader items to get clicks on their sites.
Right.
And they create a little headline, and they're doing the real journalism shit. They think it's kind of funny. So I don't know, man. I think I think it's good. I think it gives people another place to go earn a living. And I'm not the guy that's going to say, well, I'm omnipotent. My God, hell, hey, ha, 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 pal. I'm not going to do that. Because I want people to make all the money they can and have places to go to work. This is not an easy business to establish longevity. And it never has been. And it may be more extreme now than, you look at Bobby Lashley as the champion there. He's been there 16 years.
Yeah.
I was around when we hired him and had to explain to him how his pay worked because the other talent relations head guy didn't understand it either. So another funny story for another day, but nonetheless, it's a tough gig, but I'm all for guys having options.
I think it's been tremendous to see NWA talent and Impact talent all working together with AEW talent. And I like
what does it hurt?
I agree. And I like that Tony Khan sort of poked fun at that on his Impact promos where he referred to it as the forbidden door. That's just good stuff, man. And I'm glad to see it. And I'm excited for what could be possible with New Japan. And, you mentioned Bobby Lashley and my brain immediately went to Jim. We're less than a month away from WrestleMania and we've heard that there will be people there, but tickets aren't on sale yet. This is, and I know a lot of fans are getting anxious or nervous or upset or whatever they are, but this is unprecedented territory where the WWE is essentially going to play, the guinea pig and how to sort of open things back up again, not just for wrestling, but for a lot of sports. This will be one of the biggest gatherings that anyone has put together, and they want to get this right, I assume. Do you think at this point, when we're less than a month away and it doesn't seem like we have a finalized card yet, it doesn't seem like tickets are going on sale imminently, where are you at on this year's WrestleMania?
Well, I know tickets go on sale later this week. From what I understand, cause I read that online and my timeline. I hope they do well. They're looking for 45,000 a night. So that's doable. It's doable. There'll be a lot of tickets bought up on the secondary market by ticket brokers and things of that nature. So the numbers on the opening day should be very strong, even to the point of selling out 1 to 2 nights in advance and maybe more. But you're right. I've always been kind of mystified about why they can't figure out and finalize a card. I know there's a lot of politicking and a lot of lobbyists who wear tights for a living, who are trying to get in front of events and say, I want to do this, I could do that. Give me 40 minutes or give me whatever. So how many nights does Lashley defend the title 2 nights in a row? If you go all this mind screwing to figure it out, but I never understood that. It's almost, you wonder sometimes, does it make them feel that we're retroing it? We're getting back into the old wrestling business. God damn, we can't be in the wrestling business because we're sports entertainment. Brucey's not wearing Zubaz and a Gold's Gym t-shirt to work.
No, he's not.
He's wearing a coat and tie.
Yes, he is.
Different deal.
I want to mention
Bruce. I just say
the tickets situation. They announced last week that tickets would be on sale next Tuesday, which is you and I are recording here on 3/16. Shout out to Steve Austin. Today would be that Tuesday. Well, they announced last night while you and I were both snoring that they're pushing back this. And it says, Tom Phillips even made a statement. Plans for the next 2-night event are still being finalized. Expect a new on-sale date within the next week. And there was a tweet from WWE and a media statement right afterwards, basically saying the same thing, that we're going to get tickets on sale hopefully next week, but that only gives you, 2 or 3 weeks to really push the thing. It is WrestleMania, so it's not like they're going to be struggling to sell those tickets, but there's probably a lot of fans, especially international fans, who wanted this to be like their first big travel experience. And I don't know, man, it just feels like, the WWE wants to measure twice and cut once. And I get that, because I think a lot of wrestling companies are probably going to follow the leader here, see how WWE handles this event, and then figure out how they want to handle their events moving forward. That's certainly been the talk that I've heard. Would you agree with that? That people are going to take a wait and see approach, see how WWE handles WrestleMania, and then try to follow suit as best they can?
I think some will, Conrad. Probably a smart move. But I think a lot of companies are already developing their strategy. I've seen a lot of baseball clubs, Texas Rangers, for example, that say we're going to open opening day and we're going to be full.
Right.
And others are following that suit. So the baseball teams, the MLB teams are going to follow what other MLB teams do. But I'm sure that people will be looking at how WWE produces the event in the COVID year, whatever. And so I think it'll be a good learning experience for them. I don't think anybody's going to sit around and, oh, well, WWE did it, so now we're good. Let's go do this. I don't know that they're that role model.
Right.
They may be. There are things that you can always learn from any promotion. And when you're dealing with ticketed individuals that have to be socially distanced, et cetera, then, you can learn from that, no doubt. I'm hopeful that I believe that AEW is going to go back on the road for some dates beginning this fall.
Right.
I believe that will happen unless. So now here's the headline. Ross says AEW will return this fall. Well, I'm saying that if the climate is right and there's no more major outbreaks and there's not new developments in COVID, then I believe that we have a fighting chance to have some on the road dates this fall. But that's a guess. It's a goal. And sometimes, just like being in business, Connie, you don't hit all your goals. So I'm for, I think people will learn from the experience and see how they socially distance, how they let people in, what kind of testing they have to do. They all test their temperatures and all those things. But when you got 45,000 people showing up and there's still social distancing guidelines and CDC issues that you have to address, even though it's Florida, where things are pretty wide open right now, thanks to the governor, I think people will be paying attention. How did they pull it off? What can we learn from WWE's WrestleMania? That might be the end statement. What did we learn from their experience over that weekend in Tampa?
Let me ask, while we're talking about WWE stuff, there was a report that came out this past week that there appears to be a bit of a COVID outbreak on the NXT roster, depending on who you believe, but apparently there were a bunch of failures that started coming in last Friday. And this is one of the first times we've seen something like this in a while. We know what AEW's protocol has been, but we also know that both of these companies are handling their shows in Florida, which the national media has sometimes called the Wild Wild West during all this. This is an unwinnable position for WWE. What do you think should have happened, or what should the response be? If you were running talent relations and you had a chance to sort of throw your 2 cents in, what would the advice be? I
think the advice would be the same as I would give any other entity. You better take this damn thing seriously.
Right.
You really better take it seriously. I said this here on the show. I'm not going to dwell on it, but my 2 granddaughters lost their other grandpa on Easter Sunday. He's dead. Ain't coming back. Serious. So I think a lot of guys they get that wrestler mentality, Conrad. They're bulletproof. I'm Superman. I got a great tan. I got big arms. I wet my hair before I came out of the runway and the entrance. I got several new tattoos since last time you saw me. And I slap my leg when I kick. Well, it's a lot more about it than that, pal. This shit'll kill you. And it seems to me, and I might be wrong, that there are some on the roster in all companies, not just the WWE, but in all companies that aren't taking this matter as gravely and as seriously as they should. So that would be the thing I would stress. And I would also not have any compromise. You see somebody, I mean, that'd be guys like that. Tony Khan wears a mask.
Yes.
Vince McMahon should wear a mask. I'm sure he does.
Yeah,
I guess. I haven't seen Vince in a long time. It's funny how that works. Got the administrators, the new talent relations guy, Laurinaitis should set an example.
Right.
Oh, it's all right. It's okay. You'll be okay. No, it's not okay. You wear the goddamn mask.
I'm sure they're all wearing masks.
I would think.
Yeah.
I would think, right? But some of the talents aren't taking it as seriously. You don't just have outbreaks unless there's not been a breach,
right,
of your chain of command and a breach of your security in that respect. So I would say you better take this shit seriously. And guys that are just adamantly refusing they don't want to get their test. They don't want the nose swab thing or saliva tests, which is what I use, by the way. And I know we're getting toward the situation too, where, and we're probably already there, where you got home tests.
Yeah.
The saliva test I did at home.
Yeah. Eric Bischoff did his test from home too. And I don't think it's a lack of testing. I think a lot of people are critical of the piece where what happens when you leave the office, when you're just out in the real world, so to speak, and then you come back in, especially in a place like Florida, where it does feel like some of the mask mandates at times over this past year have been a little willy-nilly, to say the least. I think a lot of people start to play detective and say, well, here's where it could have happened. And I don't know, the whole thing sucks, and I'm ready for it to be a non-starter. And I say we move on. Let's talk a little bit about the good old days. And this is going to be an interesting question. Roddy Garcia wants to know, JR, who was just the worst person ever in your career to deal with? And did they realize they were the drizzling shits to deal with? Let me rephrase it a different way for you though, Jim. In all your years running talent relations, who was the most frustrating talent where you felt like, gosh, if we could just get past this one issue, whatever it was, this guy or gal would be a superstar, but they're just in their own way. Do you remember who was maybe the most frustrating you dealt with in that regard?
Yeah. Warrior.
Okay.
It's just interesting too. Rodney's I see Rodney on my timeline. He follows me on Twitter at JRSBBQ. So I know he's up to snuff on what's going on in that respect from his world. It's just funny how these questions go down that road.
Yeah.
Who was the absolute worst human being you ever worked with? Okay. Rodney, why do you need to know that?
Right.
Why is that important? Is that just the world we live in? And it's more provocative, compelling. Well, JR said, look, nobody was harder to deal with than the Ultimate Warrior in my world. There are always guys, when you're casting or booking, and in a very subjective world, everybody can't be the cowboy. Everybody can't be above the title. Everybody can't be the hero. And everybody can't make the most money. And that's what it's all about. So, Warrior was the toughest one, without a doubt. And that's quick, easy answer. I can think of guys in my head. I've seen pictures now, guys in my head. Well, that was a bad day, or this is whatever. But overall, you knew that anytime the Warrior was going to be in the building, be prepared for anything negative, because generally that's what you got.
Your boy Roddy has another question here. Who do you think had the biggest pop you ever witnessed? When and where was it? I think a lot of people point back to the night Mick Foley won the title and Stone Cold did the big run in. Boy, they're in Worcester. They were just going bananas. Does another big pop like that stick out in your memory?
Well, I was in Worcester. I was sick. I had the Bell's palsy, and I didn't call that match. I've said many times, if there's one match in my career that I wish I could have called that I didn't, it would be Foley winning the title.
Yeah.
And well, there's a lot of Chicago is one market that you could always count on for great pops. And so is the MSG, Madison Square Garden, of course. Triple H returning to the Garden.
Big one.
Huge. Anytime Austin was gone and he came back, it was like the Messiah showing himself.
Oh, what about Hogan the night after WrestleMania 18? That was a big one, I'm sure.
That was huge.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick one.
Right.
Because they keep popping in your head that did real well. But, you know, the Garden and Chicago were the two cities, if I had to narrow it down to two markets that always you could rely on when something was really big and you're fully expecting something equally as big as far as the audience reaction, you get that in New York City and Chicago almost without fail.
My goodness. We get lots of questions like this. I mean, we probably got this one 17 different ways. Ahmad wants to know, what is your relationship like with Vince these days?
Oh, God. Well, we haven't had breakfast this week together. Ahmad, you know, is professional, is polite. You may roll your eyes, Ahmad, about this, but we're civil.
Yeah.
We're friends. You can't work for somebody for 26 years and have the experiences together that Vince and I had without having something more than just the wrestling business tying us together. And we did not have a one-dimensional friendship. You know, the tragedies of Jan getting killed, my wife, Jan getting killed, you know, people step up. That's when you find out who's who.
Right.
And Vince stepped up. A lot of my friends stepped up. So I consider Vince a friend. We will always have philosophical differences. But what the hell does that mean? Is that an indictment, Conrad? Should I feel bad that he and I don't agree on everything? Look, you believe in your heart, deep in your heart, that Alabama is the greatest football program in the history of college football. Without a question.
Yeah.
Well, there's some people that don't agree with you. That don't mean you're something wrong with you. Because you can go on your tire. Well, we've won 8 titles and we've done this. You have. And it's a great program. It's my second favorite program. But I'll never put Alabama over Oklahoma because that's my home. So it's just a different thing, man. It's just a different deal. But yeah, Vince and I get along. You know, we text, special occasions. Something happens. Unfortunately, somebody's passing. You know, sure sad to see so-and-so, you know, transition, whatever. He always returns my text messages. And he sent me a text message the other day, and we're just chatting. So I don't know, man. Everybody reads something into something, Conrad. Well, there's got to be some damn dirt. God damn it, we need dirt. Son of a bitch. Where's the dirt? I don't want to know what you have for breakfast. Who gives a shit, JR? Nobody gives a shit. I want fucking dirt. If you don't give me dirt, then I'm not going to listen to your goddamn show anymore or your Grilling JR podcast. That's what we've got to have. We need it. We want it. We need more the derisiveness, and we need more goddamn combative nature in our world that the world doesn't give us. So it's fine. I can tell you this. I really believe this. If I was not working for AEW and I needed money, which by the way is not going to happen, then and I needed something that Vince McMahon could facilitate, he would do it. He would do it. Well, but that's not dirt.
Yeah.
I don't want a huggy feely and chase a hug shit. I want dirt. Goddamn, JR. You know why we listen. So anyway, yeah, it's our relationship is a lot more personal, which is nobody's business but mine and Vince's, than it is business-wise. We don't discuss business ever, whatsoever. So that's kind of where we are there with that. I'm proud to have him as a friend. You can't get too many friends, Conrad. You just can't.
That's right. No,
he made me a lot of money.
Yeah.
He always was loving and respectful to my late wife. He made our lives better. And I don't forget shit like that. Oh, yeah. But what about the time he's Dr. Heine and he pulled your head out of your ass? Yeah. What's your point?
Right.
It's fiction. Was it distasteful? I thought so.
Right.
But was it the end of the world?
No.
No.
Of course not.
It closed Raw. I felt pretty damn good that my topic, my persona, closed the Raw show. I'm not saying I'm bragging about it, but at least it's positioned in a unique way. So, yeah, no, he and I have and look, I pay more attention to that kind of stuff. The older we get, and those that don't are fools. Those that don't are fools. I bet you $100 right now to $1. That's good odds, by the way, Conrad. If you could have one more chat with Jimmy Crockett, you'd do it. Right?
Of course, 100%.
Because you had an experience that was valuable to you, that meant something to you. And one that you had never expected would happen. And when it did, it was better than you dreamed it was going to be.
Yes.
Because you did great work on that interview. Nobody could have done that any better than you. I promise you. So, that's kind of where we are with that deal. It's a personal relationship that we try to maintain some sort of contact with, but some sort of contact meaning his birthday, my birthday, Christmas, that type thing. So, it's real simple. There's two different relationships. The business side and the personal side. Business side is non-existent. The personal side is still in place.
Well, now that we got Red Ass JR here, here's a good question for him. Mayhem wants to know, rumor and innuendo is that WWE is now putting up notices backstage in gorilla position, trying to stop leg slapping, going as far as starting to fine people for it. Do you remember Vince having an opinion on leg slapping? I got to say, Jim, I think a lot of the anti-leg slap stuff started here on this show with your advice.
Well, here's the thing. I've been mischaracterized in this matter to some degree. Here's the issue. I don't have a major philosophical issue with a well-placed occasional leg slap.
Right.
When you hear them all for a 2-hour show, off and on, it's not cool. And here's the main bitch I have about it, is that instead of taking your hand and starting closer to your body, some of our talents and the business worldwide, they reach way out here.
Right. So
you see their hand way the hell out here, separated from their body, and then they come slap. That's my problem. You're being too, as a talent, you're being too obvious. It's an expose. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing a little sleight of hand, Jerry Lawler was a slapper for years.
The best.
Nobody knew it.
The best.
Yeah. Because he didn't advertise it. He didn't say, here it comes.
Right.
Here comes a slap. So that's my issue there with that deal. It's just, it becomes unrealistic. And if the fans open up and they start looking for it, dang, then they're not looking at the right thing. They're not paying attention to what the talents are trying to accomplish. They're looking for the little leg slap, little sleight of hand, Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the idea, is if it becomes too obvious, you're focusing more on the quote unquote magic and less on the intended story that you're trying to tell.
Right. Just, it's a disconnect. It can create a disconnect. And, so, I don't know, man. I think it's a matter of execution. Occasional, subtle execution is not an issue to me. But when you do it overkill more frequently, it's even worse. You got a tag team in there and they're both slapping in synchronization. It's like, geez, what are we doing? And I watch people go over matches, walk through, scenarios, and they're doing their leg slap or the chest slap in walkthroughs.
Right.
I'm thinking, you got to be shitting me. Are you that disconnected? You not have any training, any background? Because I don't think a great, I got a lot of friends that have wrestling schools. I saw where Lance Storm was doing some stuff on Zoom or whatever. The Dudley's got a great school. Bubba's a really great teacher in that regard. I enjoy Bubba on Busted Open with Dave LaGreca. They do a good job. Al Snow's got does good stuff in OVW. There's a lot of good schools out there, man. But I don't think any of them teach leg slapping. Why would you? The guys I'm talking about, the Al Snows and the Dudleys and all these cats, they're not going to teach that. So I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the obvious. I like the subtleties. And I don't want you to take me out of my zone. If I see you, Conrad, slap your big ass, then how's that relate to your match? Oh, that large man just slapped his ass. I wonder why. I don't know.
Do you remember Vince having an opinion of leg slapping back in the day?
Nope. It wasn't as prominent.
Right.
The only guy that really did it very much was Shawn Michaels on one move, the super kick.
Just like Chris Adams before him. That was probably, as far as I know, the first place it became a norm, right? Super kick, slap the leg. Yeah.
It's during that era, no doubt about it. So I get it. If it's executed right, I don't have an issue with it. But if you're going to have your arm way out there where everybody can see, you know, you're engaged in physicality and you're grappling, and all of a sudden that one hand extends way the hell out here. Why is he doing that?
Right.
Oh, you'll see. Slap. So it's just that annoys me, obviously, and I just think it takes anything that we do in the wrestling business, bell to bell, that takes you out of the moment is not a good thing. It's just not.
Right. Here's another question that we've hinted around a little bit, but we've never really talked about it, I don't think. Your old pal Don Pruitt wants to know, do foreign language commentators get produced in a manner similar to that of the English commentators? Is Vince McMahon or someone else ever in their ear?
No, not to my knowledge. Not he wasn't when I was there. You know, we had Carlos Cabrera and Hugo Savinovich, and both really smart guys, and they understood the business. They went through all the production meetings. Many times they would come seek counsel, or has anything changed, things of that nature. But they had it lucky. They got counted in, they got counted out, and they weren't being produced by Vince, for example. And sometimes he could be a little busy in the headset. So, and I don't think they would have produced as well as they did if that had been the methodology. So no, they're not produced that way. And that I don't know if there are any decision makers there now even that would could understand what they're saying, to the level of the decision maker being able to correct something. So, but no, it's not. That's a hole in the system for a lot of companies.
Josh Edkins wants to know, who do you think was a better heel, Vince or Stephanie? And who would have been a better babyface between the two in their brief spells they had as babyfaces on TV?
Well, I've always said that Vince was the best heel in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And I believe that. But if he was one, she might have been 1A.
Yeah.
They were both had those great heel qualities. You know, I told this story ad nauseum about telling Paul Heyman one time, I said, God damn, you're easy to hate. You really are, man. He looks at me, with astonishment, like, I can't believe you'd say that. I said, if you think about it, genius, it's the best compliment a heel can get.
Yes.
You are easy to hate. You know your role. You know how to portray your role as a villain, so that I want to see you have misery and discomfort and angst. So then he got it, and he wanted to hug, and he's too sweaty. But Vince was the best heel. Stephanie evolved into a great heel as well.
Yes.
So, I don't know. They both did their roles real good. They were kind of playing out their fantasies. What Stephanie saw Vince do, she had no issue trying to emulate it.
Right. And it worked.
And it worked. So that's not a bad thing, quite frankly, at all. So Vince will always be at the top of my list there. He was just easy to hate.
Referee Jesse
Mr.
Fields. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mr. McMahon was easy to hate, Conrad.
Referee Jesse Fields writes, who's the best referee of all time, in your opinion, Jim?
Well, there's a lot of good ones. Probably Tommy Young.
Yeah, he's up there.
He'll be in the conversation. Earl Hebner in a conversation without doubt. I always liked Timmy White because he's understated. You didn't notice him. I thought that was kind of cool. Those are three right there that I like. You know, Teddy Long wasn't a bad referee back in the day. But I would say Tommy Young, Earl Hebner, and I'm sure I'm leaving out some. Oh, there's a lot of really good ones.
Oh yeah, Charles Robinson.
And their role is, and their role is understated, Conrad.
Yeah,
the role of a referee is understated, and the talents that don't have the intellect, quite frankly, the talents that don't have the intellect to utilize the referee to make their presentation better really aren't very bright. They just really don't get it. So it's because it's always about them. But those two guys would be Timmy White. I always liked Timmy White because he was reliable and he was dependable. You know, he just did good. Mike Chioda. I couldn't put Mike Chioda was one of the best referees I ever saw.
Yep.
And I think he still got some tread on the tires, quite frankly.
Oh yeah.
I wish we were seeing him more in AEW. I like his work simply for that reason. But it's an unsung role that, if used properly, can enhance any match. The referee.
Mac James has a question. I wonder if Jim has seen the new WWE Big E documentary on the WWE Network. If so, how does he feel about being the link to the star of his career?
You know, I have not seen that. Did you see it?
I did. I think I mentioned to you.
I don't know exactly what he's talking about. Tell me what happened.
You bumped into a wrestling coach on an airplane, saw he was wearing some swag, and handed him your business card and said something along the lines of, "Hey, if you ever run across somebody who you think would be a good fit for our business, give me a call." Yeah. And then they did call, and it wound up being a call for Big E. And now, of course, we see he's having tremendous success. But had you not been wearing your hat on that airplane, decked out in your Oklahoma colors, maybe that wouldn't have happened.
Never know. And never used the right place, right time. Big E was playing in the defensive line at Iowa. And, you know, I had a lot of interactions with some of the folks in Iowa due to the wrestling museum there, the Dan Gable Museum, and their annual get together they did every summer, which is one of the most fun events that I ever attended. Jerry Briscoe and I always had a blast there. A lot of the wrestling people and National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I'm in their Hall of Fame, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely.
So it's neat. But yeah, I do remember it now. I haven't seen that. I'll go out of my way to try to check that out. But you know, Big E was a good get. And then you meet him, and you know, well, this is a done deal. Right. Look at him. Yeah. He's one of those. He passes the Vince McMahon eye test. He can walk the baggage claim. Everybody notice him. So I'm happy for him. He's a real good guy. Big E's a really good guy, and I like for really good guys to get their break and then realize they got a break and now run with that son of a bitch. And I think he's done it. He'll be the Universal Champion or the WWE Champion sooner than later in his career. No doubt in my mind.
The Heel Pop wants to know, does JR have any quirky pregame rituals before going live on the air for TV or pay-per-view?
Well, I usually run the bleachers for a couple of hours wearing nothing but a loincloth. Let me see. I used to have more than I do now. I always have a red folder with me. I keep my format sheets in a red folder. I've been doing that for many decades, actually. And it's kind of like your deal. It's the crimson folder.
There you go.
You get it. And Sooners are crimson and cream. And so I do that. It's just habit. But anything else, you know, in the last couple of years, since I finally understood how to partially utilize my iPad, my new iPad. I listen to music sometimes. And I got me some of those fancy Dan, as Jim Duggan would say, fancy Dan earbuds.
There you go.
Yeah, man, I'm farting through silk, baby. Got me some serious ass earbuds. So we have a little trailer, announcer's trailer there at Daly's place, and that's where I'm sequestered most of the time. And I listen to music, or podcast or something. But generally, it's music. And you're going to say, well, what music do you listen to?
That's right.
Of course, right. I listen to a lot of classic rock, Stones. I listen to Heart. What else do I listen to? God, I mean, almost all the old classic stuff. Once I learned how to download the music into my device, I kind of went crazy.
There you go.
So it's music's a good thing. And then in Jacksonville, in the trailer that I utilize, they have a big screen TV in it. I mean, big ass TV. And I listen. I go back and on the TNT app and watch last week's show.
Okay.
And that always helps kind of refresh what we said, or I didn't say, and just get you back in that mold. So that's kind of the deal. But I don't do anything really abnormal. I used to have a thing where, and I got kidded about it a lot, but my one tradition I had was the night before a pay-per-view, I always had a bowl of French onion soup.
Really?
Yeah. Without fail. And I use it more. I thought it was being therapeutic. It tastes good. I like French onion soup, but it's good for your throat. So the more hot things I can consume, hot tea.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. We've heard a lot about, people who use a vocal performance that they need some sort of tea or something like that. We heard you got through a pretty tough day at the most recent AEW pay-per-view. Were you trying to load up that day with a bunch of hot tea, or what's the process like?
I had no issues until I went on the air. None. I didn't have a sore throat. I never had a sore throat. I know it was disconcerting to a lot of people, my voice. I apologize for that. Here's the deal. Next door to the Daly's place is the Jag Stadium.
Right.
TIAA Bank Stadium. And they were having monster trucks.
All weekend. You were there. Yeah.
And the air was dirty, dusty. The yellow pollen, which I'm definitely just big time allergic to. So between the pollen and the dust and the cool weather, it got me. And there was any pain. I was a pain to your ears probably. So I just started, once that started coming on, I drank a lot of hot tea. So, and it goes back to another adage. If you're going to do a 3 or 4 hour show, always wear darks. It's kind of like that NASCAR deal. When I was a little kid, I used to always wonder, when do these drivers pee? You got to pee sometime. I figured it all out finally, but that's kind of where you are in this scenario. I drank so much liquid that I was challenging my bladder. But that's the price you pay, Conrad, if you're a team man. You got to do what you got to do. So, that was the hot tea is the way to get around. It's not drinking water for me. It's drinking it warm. And sometimes I just drink hot water.
Right.
And, it helps me get through it. So that was the deal on that thing. And then within a few days, or a few minutes, by the time that show was over, I was okay. Seemingly better anyway.
Michael wants to know, did you ever have issues when discussing contracts or other issues with talent that didn't speak English? Did you have to use a translator when it came to those discussions?
Not really issues, but you want to make sure that somebody that you're talking with understood what you're saying. And that would essentially, there was a few Japanese guys like Tajiri you had to have a little help with, but they spoke enough English, you had to ensure that they were understanding. But more often than not, it was a factor in Hispanic talents. They speak broken English.
Right.
So you just had to make sure. But we always had somebody there when they come to the office that spoke Spanish or whatever that could help me out. But not really an issue. Just a matter, you slow down. They want to learn English anyway, and that's one of the things we talked to them about when we're recruiting and trying to sign them, is that you got to learn to speak English. You're not going to make big. You want to make big money? See, then you got to speak some English enough to do a promo. Don't forsake your home country or your language, but you got to speak some of this language to get the message out to the most people. And they got it. So not really an issue, but you had to be prepared for that presentation.
The total package, or total lackage rather, wants to know any fond memories from your appearance on Family Feud with Sting, Z-Man, Brian Pillman, and Brad Armstrong when you guys took on the ladies from Glow.
Yeah. That was fun trip. I think we taped all those shows, a week's worth of those shows in one day. That surprised me a little bit. I didn't know how they did that format. I know that the late Ray Combs, who for many years owned a comedy club in Cincinnati, I think, really was fascinated by wrestling. I mean, he would have loved to have been as a manager or something, and probably would have been a pretty good one because he's a little guy, very talkative. But meeting him was kind of cool. And of course, I think he committed suicide later on in life, which is sad as hell. Well, you never know what's really going on in somebody's head.
Right.
I think Zink and Pillman, I don't know if they ever slept once we got from Atlanta to L.A. They were enjoying L.A. And the lucky part for me was, they pair you off. So, my adversary was Mrs. Stallone. And she was a little slow in the draw, thank God for JR. So I won a lot of those face-offs. I think I won them all. And we ended up winning the game. But it was kind of funny interacting with those ladies. But yeah, it was a good time. And it was good for WCW to be on a show that a lot of folks watched. So we were on 5 episodes that week, and it worked out real well. It's a fun gig, no doubt.
Brassfield Rods wants to know any handsome Jimmy Valiant stories you can share with us.
You know what? I was never around Jimmy much. I know Lawler's got a zillion of them because he's one of Lawler's guys there in Memphis for all those years. Jimmy came in to work with Cowboy in Mid-South for a while, and Watts ended up firing him. I think he fired him and Ken Patera. I'm not sure about that, but I know he fired Handsome Jimmy, and one more guy. I think it was for no showing, or they didn't like the drive, or too far, or wore out. I don't know, but Cowboy didn't tolerate that. So that was my first experience with him. I'd never seen anybody that was so different off camera than they were on camera than Handsome Jimmy. You'd think when you're talking to him off camera that he's just ingested a handful of, downers. And then you get him in front of the camera and he's lights up.
Right.
Always an enjoyable guy to talk with. Great stories. He had a big run in New York. He was a big star, in our business. So, but nothing really outrageous or anything. He just was always polite, soft-spoken. And I still think he was really a good guy. He got crossface with the Cowboy because, that territory was very challenging from a physical standpoint of what Watts demanded in the ring to the travel. And there was no airplane trips. You get your ass in a car, and that's where you went. I always wonder why wrestlers used to drive big Cadillacs and Lincolns. And the two reasons are it was status. It exuded success.
Yes.
The big car. And they're just more comfortable. And you can put 4 people in it.
And you can fit more bags.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And you can put their bags in your massive trunk.
Yep.
But the 4 people, that's 6 cents a mile.
Right.
Meaning that they pay you 2 cents a mile for the trip, for sitting in your car and you driving them to the next town or whatever. And so the 6 cents a mile was a pretty cool deal. If you, let's say you drove 200 miles, that's $12, right?
Yep.
Well, it may not sound like shit right now, but when gas was $1 and something a gallon, you got 2 or 3 tanks, you got at least a couple of tanks of gas out of that trans money.
Right.
And sometimes the trips were so damn long, which a lot of them were, you got your trans money help pay your hotel room.
Right.
So that's why the guys drove those great big cars. But I don't know where I got on that topic. But anyway, Handsome Jimmy and a lot of those guys are so damn big, they drove those Lincolns and Cadillacs and so forth because they were comfortable. And you could put more of your 2 cents a mile guys in there with you to make some extra cash.
James Farrell has a question. Give us a background on Master G. I believe he was a black man who was going to take the place of JYD when he left for New York during the Mid-South days. Why didn't it work out? I think that's the old George Wells, right?
Yeah, George Wells. George's a nice guy, but he stepped into mighty big shoes.
Yes.
And the dog, you know, it's sad that people remember Junkyard Dog in his last days. And, you know, he was far from what he used to be, like many of us. So George had the unenviable task of being cast in the role as the successor for the Junkyard Dog. And that was a mistake from the get-go. Number one, we had the guy that should have been the replacement already on the team, already had a jersey, already had a locker, and that was Butch Reed. Simple. Cowboy wanted a fresh deal, and he had Ernie Ladd looking for all these different guys, and all black, which is cool, but it wasn't smart. It wasn't smart at all. So I thought we should have stayed in house, and we eventually did. But we tried a lot of African American wrestlers to replace Dog. Where Ernie Ladd brings in Brickhouse Brown. Did I tell you that story? The Brickhouse Brown story?
Yeah, let's do it.
Brickhouse Brown was a African American, smaller guy, great physique, good dude. His name was Fred Seawright, real name. But none of us knew that. And Bill, I think Brickhouse Brown drove from Memphis to Shreveport, so he didn't have a plane ticket. So anyway, Bill wanted to talk to Brickhouse. We're getting ready to do 2 TV shows. Here's what I want. Here's how you need to present yourself, etc. So he had Joel was there. Joel Watts was there, and Ernie and me, a Cowboy, of course. And he said, "Get Brickhouse, go get Brickhouse, and I want to talk to him here. Bring him to my room." And so Joel leaves to go get Brickhouse, but Joel didn't know his name either, and he didn't check in as Brickhouse Brown. Checked in under his real name, what it said on his driver's license. So Cowboys get more impatient by the second, man. Where is he, Ernie? God damn it, Ernie. So, you know, Ernie didn't know his name. Going to be the replacement for the Dog. We don't know his name. Cowboy went up there. He just went crazy. So finally, in a little while, we hear they make an announcement for an emergency, there's been a fire on the 3rd floor. Please don't use the elevators, whatever. So we hear on the speaker, go echoing throughout the Holiday Inn Holodome near the airport in Shreveport. Cowboy liked it because they had nice croissants. So that's why he stayed there. Croissants. Hey, some of these bosses in wrestling are a little eccentric, I'm telling you. So anyway, we're sitting there, and over the loudspeaker we hear, Brickhouse Brown, please report to the front desk. That's Brickhouse Brown. And so we finally connected with him, and Cowboy gave him his instructions and the big shoes he had to fill, et cetera, et cetera. As there could be a big break for you. Of course, Ernie gave him a big pep talk. You know, this could be a big break for you. You know, so that was a funny story. Brickhouse Brown was we didn't know his name, He was going to be the heir apparent to the King, J-O-I-D, King. So anyway, we hired a lot of African-American guys because Cowboy thought that was the way to go. And the greatest illustration of that backfiring was when, I think, when Jimmy Snuka left New York back in the day, that his replacement was another island guy, Sifi Afi. He looked a lot like Jimmy, hair, skin tone, muscular, but people saw what was trying to be, perpetuated, and they didn't buy it. So I learned right there that, you can't, when somebody leaves a value, that's be like saying, well, Hogan leaves WWE. Let's get a tall, blonde, balding, muscular talent to replace Hulk. Well, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work at all. So anyway, yeah, Master G was a good guy, a journeyman type guy, solid. I think he played a little football here and there someplace. But nice fella, but he wasn't ready for that role, and that role was extraordinary. They're like saying, let's replace Bruno after his 9-year title run. 9 years, Conrad.
Right.
With another muscular Italian. They went to another ethnicity and replaced Bruno with Pedro Morales. So, it was Master G was, we tried. It was pulling uphill. This was never going to work. And I think Cowboy may have realized that sooner than later. And of course, he always could blame Ernie.
Fun question for you here. The Heel Pop wants to know, are there bedrooms in Titan Towers due to all the late night meetings?
No. I've never seen a bedroom in Titan Towers. Of course, I don't know. I haven't been to all the secret. Oh, there are secret rooms.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There may be bedrooms in those secret rooms, pal. I think you've unlocked something that could be a time-honored secret.
There really is a forbidden door up there. Over the Line Sports Podcast says, we know Conrad's a huge belt guy. What's your favorite championship belt of all time of any promotion you've ever called matches with?
Well, I'm a big, what's this guy's name?
Over the Line Sports Podcast.
Over the Line. See, we got a little mission for him there.
Yeah.
I was always been a suspenders guy. Conrad likes the belts. I kind of like the suspenders. But it's not as heavy to pack, and you can roll them up, put them in your pocket,
It's
a lot of
nice.
convenience in that regard.
Sure.
I liked the belts. The old NWA title belt was one I liked a lot because it wasn't so gaudy.
Right.
The big gold belt didn't do anything for me.
Right.
And I know that Cowboy had a big gold belt made.
North American, that thing was huge.
Yeah, and the town always BS'd him that he did it because it helped cover up more of his belly. They didn't tell him that, but nonetheless. I'd say the old NWA title belt, the one that, guys like Jack Briscoe held and Harley and those dudes, it just seemed to be more classy. It wasn't look like a piece of a cheap piece of jewelry. To me, it was real. That's part of my problem, probably. It was real, and some of those other belts are like costume jewelry to me. So I know I'm not saying it negatively about your collection because you got the best collection of pro wrestling title belts ever.
Thank
Something that your heirs will be able to fight over for many years to come.
I'm sure the girls are really excited.
Yeah. Well, that's like my stuff. You see what I've got in my house.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I have no clue what to do with it all.
I got
really
some
don't.
ideas.
So anyway, if Jan was here, she'd know what to do with it.
Of course.
I'm a little bit helpless in that respect. But I think the smaller, classier versions of the title belts were always my favorite because I don't know. I don't want the belt to stand out because it's so goddamn big and gaudy. I want it to stand out because of what it represents. And to me, those smaller belts that was all about the title, not about the ornateness of the belt.
Eric Lewis Sr. wants to know, years ago, you were talking about selling Jan's red Mercedes convertible. Is it still yours? I bet it would be magnificent cruising around Jacksonville Beach with the top down.
It would be, but it's in my garage in Oklahoma. Yes, I still own it. I've not driven it since I have a guy that works for me. It also runs my website, Stephen Link at jrsbbq.com. Great fan, great man. Family man, so I like working with those guys. He goes over and starts it, and my Escalade is also set beside it in the garage. They got to be started too. That was a funny deal. I haven't been home. I left Oklahoma in October, and I went back in February. Well, I didn't think to suggest that we should be starting these vehicles very, very regularly. So I get home and I got, my housekeeper had cleaned out my refrigerator because of the perishables.
Sure.
I had nothing. I looked like a homeless person at home. So, I'll just go I'll run to the grocery store. Go out and jump the Escalade. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Tick, 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 tick. God damn, I was pissed off. So I'll call another guy that works with me, my handyman. He brought his jumper cables over. He got it started. I had to go buy a new battery.
Right.
So I still got it's an 87 Mercedes 560. It had one owner before I bought it for Jan. It's got 60-something thousand miles on it.
Wow.
It's cleaner than sperm on a gold tooth.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do with it because everybody sees you coming. It's got some sentimental value, but to honest to God truth, I don't need it.
Right.
I don't drive it. I never did drive it. I drove it twice, and I bought it for her in 97. It was 10 years old when I bought it. And she loved that car. It was like a child to her. So I still have it. And I don't know. I don't have any idea what it's worth. Then you get into Conrad, you get into the new car. Maybe we should give it away on ad-free networks. Maybe there's something we could do there.
Well, I'll tell you, it has some value. Since you described all the parameters here, it looks like it's worth, I don't know, somewhere between like 30 and 40,000 bucks, man.
I don't know. But again, that sentimental value, I just wouldn't want to give it away.
Of course.
And I was going to give it to my oldest granddaughter for a graduation present, which she's a senior right now. So I got to either do or get off the pot. But I got to thinking, God damn, that's going to put heat on her because most high school seniors don't drive 560s, at least where I grew up.
Right.
So I got to figure it out someday. But yeah, I still got it. It's clean as hell. Slick. It's always been garaged. So I don't have a game plan for it, Conrad, but something we can think about.
Let's do another one here. This is from Mike. He says, any stories or memories of Rhubarb Jones during his brief stint as a ring announcer in WCW?
Oh, Rhubarb was there a good while, actually. Rhubarb was the top morning drive DJ in Atlanta. And he had a really, really high ranking morning show. Rhubarb Jones, and they played FM country. And Rhubarb got sick. I'm not sure what his affliction was. Might have been cancer. I'm not real sure if it killed him. But what a nice guy he was. Really personable. You could tell why he was so popular on the radio. His voice just embraced fun and happiness, and had a great presentation and a good dude. And of course, when we do those TV shows at Center Stage or something, that was promotion. Rhubarb would always talk about where he's going tonight. We're going down to Center Stage, blah, blah, blah. Media stretch.
Right.
But a real nice guy. And he had a pretty good gig there doing that thing. And, sometimes we think all these morning guys, even in the market size of Atlanta, are making a fortune.
Not sure.
They're really not.
No.
So, you got buddies in the radio business.
Oh, yeah.
They work their ass off, but they're not getting rich,
right?
But they're doing okay.
Yeah.
And Rhubarb was kind of that guy. A real nice fella, no doubt. Never late, always dependable, just a good professional dude. And he had fun doing the gig. Some of his best moments were before we went on the air, and he was warming up the audience. So I miss Rhubarb. he's one of the guys that if he was still alive, I'm sure that I would
be in touch with.
Keeping in touch with. Yeah.
David wants to know, hopefully it's not too late to ask a question, but I recently heard a story about a match between Angelo Savoldi and Danny Hodge, where Angelo says he was stabbed by Danny Hodge's father. Can you elaborate on this story?
Well, that's a true story.
My gosh, what happened?
Well, Angelo was a heel. Danny's father, along with most of the audience, wasn't smartened up to the business.
Right.
Danny never smartened his dad up. Danny's father always believed that pro wrestling was real. And so they're having a match in Oklahoma City, as I recall. I wasn't there. I was too young. But I heard the story a zillion times from McGurk and guys that were there. Leo Voss was a referee. I think he was refereeing that match. So Angelo was getting good heat on Danny. And Danny was such a drunk man. And his dad got so goddamn wrapped up in it emotionally, he took that old frog sticker, a case knife. Anybody knows anything about pocket knives knows the case knives have been around forever. And they, shave the hair on your arm.
Yeah.
Sharp as hell if you keep them sharp. Dangerous. And he was looking to stab. I think he also got Danny, too. I think Danny got stabbed.
What a sentence. I think he was looking to stab. Oh, okay.
He was looking to stab Angelo.
Right.
And he got both of them. And he also got taken to jail. And of course, McGurk got Danny's father off of attempted murder or attempted this or whatever. But it was a true story. It was Angelo was a great heel. Very basic, very fundamentally sound, but a really believable heel. And he had to be a believable heel for Hodge. He just had to be because he was so strong, so strong, that if you weren't a great heel and cheated to gain the unfair advantage, the match might not really take off like you wanted it. So that's what happened there in that situation. Is that and a lot of blood, you can imagine.
Oh yeah,
and stitches and all that's horrible. So they were lucky that worse things didn't happen. But it's a true story. Oklahoma City Stockyards Coliseum.
The heel pop wants to know, I'm sure Vince McMahon called you plenty of times in the middle of the night, but do you remember what the most random question asked that you can recall? So was there a really random call where you woke up out of a dead sleep and you're like, what the fuck was that about?
Well, no, not really. I mean, he probably was awake. He slept about 3 or 4 hours a day.
Right.
He did call me. I don't have an answer for that question. I don't have an answer.
Right.
He never called me in the middle of the night and said, how was your day? Or what'd you have for lunch? Or what'd you think of the specials at the cafeteria? No. It would always be business oriented, and it would be him thinking about something and needing an answer. What do we do about so-and-so's contract? What are you going to do about so-and-so's grievance about his WrestleMania payoff? Things like that. Things that popped into his head. He just wanted an answer then so he could move on to what else he was doing. But it was that didn't happen that much. My God, Conrad, I was joined to the hip with him. Right. It was just like, our friend Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah, he's at the hip now. Yeah.
He's attached.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he and Vince talk at night occasionally, but it might not be as much as you think because they're together so much
during the day
other than overnight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how that worked. But he was, we never had those casual conversations in that regard. I had plenty of opportunity during the day. If he wanted to have a casual conversation, sit back in his chair, get a laugh, whatever, without him calling me at night. If he called me at night, I knew it was serious, and serious to him.
Right.
You know how it is. You run a big company, saveaconrad.com.
Appreciate the plug.
Sure. You need it. I know you're hurting.
Oh, we are, man. We're struggling over here.
Yeah. It's a great time to be in the mortgage business.
It's incredible. WrestleManiac wants to know, does Jim recall of Jim Barnett
Connie, my God, those cheeks.
Ever telling interesting stories from his time as a federal office holder during Jimmy Carter's presidency. That's something we never talk about.
He wasn't a federal office holder.
Okay.
He was on the President's Council for the Fine Arts.
There you go. That's a little different.
I don't think he didn't carry a gun or a badge. That could have been, those cavity searches would have been very unique.
Can you imagine?
Oh, my boy. My God. Conrad's got wonderful cheeks out of that beard. He was Mr. Barnett was a big Democrat. And, of course, in today's world, if you say you're a Democrat, all the Republicans hate your ass. If you say you're a Republican, all the Democrats hate your ass just because of your party affiliation.
Right.
Oftentimes that's shit to do with what you've accomplished or what you want to accomplish. It's just because you're on the wrong side of the aisle. And God damn it, man. What side of the aisle you're on is really, really important. You know, it's funny. It took like 3 days for Biden to get on everybody's shit list after he became president. And the same thing would have been if Trump would have been reelected.
It's an unwinnable situation right now.
Horrible.
My gosh.
It's horrible. So Barnett was a very influential donor. And remember, Barnett was big in Georgia.
Right.
And he made a lot of contributions to Jimmy Carter's campaign while Jimmy Carter was the governor and running for office. So as many politicians do, when Carter became the president of the United States, Jimsy was in the line to get some sort of appointment, and for Barnett to get something. Barnett had, I don't know whatever happened to it. I'd love to know. Barnett had the most unique picture. He was on the dais. Is it dais or dais, whatever?
Yeah, either
or. At Carter's inauguration, and when you see the nice picture of that scene that day where Carter taking the oath, there's Jimsy about 2 rows behind him on the right side. And if you're a historian, have any interest at all in history, you'll see that all these famous people, you know, these guys that were like job guys and they became main eventers. LBJ kind of became the president. You know what I mean? That type of deal.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of history, of course, then there's some Republicans say, I'm not going to look at that in the Democrat Center. I'm not go blind. So I don't know, but that's what Jimsy was. He didn't carry a gun, thank God, or a badge. He just was an art connoisseur, and he was.
Let's do another one here. This is an interesting one. A name we haven't talked about before. Coondog wants to know, did JR ever work with Iceman King Parsons?
Yes, Coondog, I have. I did. When Cowboy, Bill Watts, and Fritz Von Erich were on speaking terms, they shared talent. And we would use all those world-class guys on our TV shows because their TV show with Channel 11 boomed into our territory. And it was on most of the cable systems. So those guys had a lot of exposure. So they would just basically follow the storyline that they were in on Channel 11 television. But Ice was, he did, I think his, that old Willie Stargell thing, that We Are Family, the Pittsburgh Pirates, that was his deal. And he added a much needed element of diversity to what we were doing. And he was a good worker. I saw him maybe 2 years ago at a little thing. He wasn't working, but he was there. Looked good. But yeah, we worked together, and Ice was no pro. That was an easy trip for those dudes. From Dallas to Oklahoma City to Tulsa for TV was like, 3 hours max? Easy drive. They weren't going to go to the airport to get on the airplane for a 3-hour drive. Plus, Cowboy wasn't going to pay for that. He might give you some trans money, but that's about it. And the guys were happy to get the trans money and get the payday because they were doing pretty decent business. So they were going to do all right. But I always liked working with Ice. He had a lot of fire and did a good job. He's probably one of the more underrated guys because his name wasn't Von Erich.
Right.
In that territory.
Eric wants to know, how good do you think Vince McMahon was as an announcer?
Better than people give him credit for being.
I agree.
Much better than people give him credit for being. His heat in subsequent years, due to the popularity or lack thereof, depending on your perspective, of the Mr. McMahon character, has brought forward the fact, well, he was an asshole, he was mean to this guy, or he's tough, whatever, blah, 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 all the stories over the years. But don't think that he wasn't a good announcer. He did a good job. I've always said that until now, I've never been a fan of three-man teams. I'm still not overwhelmed with it.
Right.
It has nothing to do with it. The two guys I work with. The two guys I work with now, it's the best three-man team I've worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy it a lot with those guys, with Excalibur and Tony. But Vince and Lawler and I had a good little thing going. We were all, Vince was going to be the lead. He was going to do the play-by-play. Lawler was going to, get his Lawler stuff in. Then if there's anything left over, then JR could pop in, which is fine with me. I had to provide less content. And so I didn't have to be good as many times. So Vince did a good job. I think he was very underrated. And if you go back and listen to some of the old stuff, hell, he did a good job. He did a real good job. I think sometimes he dwelled on, like I've done, he dwelled on interaction with his partner too long, too much, or a soundbite would do, but you got more than that. But I enjoyed his work with Ventura. And, I wasn't a big fan of Savage's announcing, but Vince made it palatable. Vince was better at working with Savage than was I. But I was better working with Lawler than Vince was. So I thought. But I thought he's underrated, Conrad. Basic bottom line answer, underrated.
Alan Jackson says, since we didn't get to ask questions about WrestleMania 20, where does JR rank that event? And does JR know anything about what Chris and Eddie said to each other in the ring that night?
Yes. Who's this question from?
Alan Jackson.
Alan, I love your music, Alan.
Me too.
You've had a hell of a run, pal. What did they talk about? I have no clue.
Right.
They whispered, and it was a private moment. Well, we bought the pay-per-view. We deserve to know. Oh, take it easy, Alan. Take it easy, pal. How about I just give you their ATM numbers? How does that make you happy? I don't have any idea. I'm sure it was obviously very private, very personal. The journeys those two dudes have been on was incredible. And to see where they ended up in the world's most famous arena, with these championships in tow, was pretty damn cool. So I'm sure it had something to do with that, but a private moment nonetheless. But I don't have any idea.
Where do you rank that show, WrestleMania 20, amongst all time?
Gosh, I equate this to my children sometimes, Conrad, these different events and WrestleManias and things of that nature. It's hard to say which one was
your favorite.
Which of my two daughters I like the better.
Right.
But on that it's always going to be in the WrestleMania 20 is always going to be in the discussion because of the uniqueness of Eddie and Benoit and the fact of where they ended up, where they were positioned in the middle of the ring, knowing that it meant so much to them as individuals. It was very special. It'll be hard to ever replicate ever again. It's sad that both guys are no longer with us. But that was a night that I'm sure that if they had lived to be 100, they would never forget that night. And neither will those of us that were there. So, but I'd say, it's a top 10 pay-per-view without a doubt. Just don't know exactly where it ranks. I like WrestleMania 17 in Houston was always one that I liked because of the card I thought was outstanding, and some things were really terrific that some people didn't think are going to be as terrific. And I know we're going to do a WrestleMania 17 show coming up in a few weeks.
I should mention off air, I got my calendar screwed up with you. We're doing WrestleMania 17 next week as we get close to that anniversary. And of course, the following week, we're going to be talking about Mankind's 96 and 97. Of course, it's hard to believe that Mick Foley debuted in the WWF 25 years ago, but that's what we'll be talking about.
Cool.
I do want to ask a couple more questions, and we'll wrap this one up. This is an interesting one from KC. He says, do you think that social media has created a pro wrestling fan base that demands instant gratification, and that's why storylines aren't booked for anywhere from 6 months to a year in advance like it was back in the good old days?
A lot, yeah, KC, and I love your band, by the way. The Sunshine Band is
Tremendous.
Favorites.
Yeah.
I listen to them all the time on my 8-track in my Lexus.
And your Camaro. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. And it's based in a lot of likely right direction. I don't understand it either. I believe sometimes we put the buggy before the horse. Quite frankly, until an angle gets established, storyline gets established, you don't really know how it's going to be. And I think sometimes we have no patience. I think all bookers and TV people need to have more patience. I get a kick out of every week when the audience numbers come out on Wednesdays for AEW and NXT, that there'll be some online that says, I'm tired of hearing about the ratings. Well, you hear from me once a week. It's a retweet of Brian Alvarez's information.
Right.
That's all you get from me. I don't go rating crazy.
Right.
But what people got to understand, Conrad, there's measuring sticks for everything that we do.
Yes.
You and I would deem something successful if it makes us money.
Yeah.
Be honest about it.
That's true.
I don't know that any wrestling podcast is going to win a fucking Emmy.
Not yet.
So, I'm a big believer that we just have no patience. And you see television shows written that way somewhat. One of my favorite shows is Chicago PD. Hank Boyd. You ever watch Chicago PD?
I have.
That blonde detective, she's hotter than hell. She's a Canadian, a Greek Canadian. I've done a lot of research on this topic. She's awesome. She's replaced Olivia Benson as my heartthrob. That's Mariska Hargitay on SVU. I'm a lonely guy, Conrad. I got my shows I got to watch, man. It's like my granny used to watch the damn soap operas. So I think we get in a big hurry. But the rating situation is fans got to understand the ratings are the lifeblood of your television program. That's your pulse. You can say, well, we had a successful show. It was really well received and everybody really liked it. But you're going to talk to the programmers and the producers of the network. They're going to say, but what were the ratings? How do we do in our demo? It's all about demo, meaning if we fail, we're going to fail by not drawing enough 18 to 34-year-old people, especially males. 18 to 49, 18 to 34, that's a big demo. That group of people spend a lot of money on advertising, on the products that you advertise. So it's imperative. So you got to talk about it some, but I'm with the basic fans. We don't need to hear about it all the time. You're gonna get it once a week from me. And that's just a retweet of how we did this week. And sometimes if we win, and sometimes if we lose, you're still going to get that one retweet. I'm not going to retweet the ones where we win.
Right.
The reality of it is I have emotional and a business relationship and investment in our show. And so consequently, I'm going to try to document how well we're doing or what we need to do, all that kind of stuff. So I think people misunderstand that the ratings are crucial.
Right.
You don't stay on the air if you don't have good ratings. Conrad and we don't stay on the air if people don't support our advertisers. We just don't. It's that simple. That's that cold. That's what business is. So that's kind of where I see that deal. It's a necessary evil. If not, how do you stay on the air? What criteria do you utilize to maintain your existence on a network on a national basis. I don't know what that would be.
We'll do 3 more and then we'll wrap up. Lindsay wants to know, who do you think was the last great territory guy?
As far as a wrestler, I'm assuming she's saying.
Yeah. Shout out to Lindsay too, being one of our 12 female listeners. We really appreciate you.
Say that again.
So shout out to Lindsay too, for being one of our 12 female listeners. We really appreciate it.
Our girl, Linz. We do appreciate her and everybody.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm not thinking, Lindsay, this may be a kind of weird, but Stone Cold came through the territories when the territories are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And he went on to have a pretty decent career from what I hear.
He did okay.
Yeah. So I would say that based on the timeline, that maybe, just maybe, Austin is the greatest territory, the last man standing in the territory situation. I'm sure there's somebody that came along after that I haven't thought of or not thinking of right now, because you don't preview these questions with me. I'm hearing them for the first time as everybody else is.
Well, let's ask the audience. Who do you think the last great territory guy is? Tweet us at JR Grilling, or of course at JR's BBQ. We want to hear from you. Charlie Thrower wants to know, with the recent passing of Pat Patterson, Mr. Ross, do you have any fun stories of Pat that you can share with us?
Pat was a fun story, a walking story. Pat would rather laugh than cry, even though he cried a lot. He's very emotional. And I think that trait of showing his emotion, feeling what he was experiencing, helped make him one of the best workers in the history of the wrestling business. And certainly, if you don't believe that that's true, which I personally believe, then he's got to be considered one of the best minds of all of wrestling. Finishes, things of that nature. I guarantee you, Conrad, there are guys right now getting ready for WrestleMania that would give anything if Patterson was alive,
mm-hmm.
so they could consult with him on their matches. He just had it. So it's funny. I was never around too many people that lived an alternative lifestyle. And Pat was being gay and being in a gay relationship. I learned so much from him.
Right.
And I'm so glad and happy and blessed that I got to know him, because I got to see how other people lived. Everybody's not going to grow up in Eastern Oklahoma and be a good old boy. Pat was a different dude. And because I was around him so much, I learned to be a lot more tolerant and understanding. So he had this beautiful home in Stanford. And Louie, his significant other, was a very skilled hairstylist. So to save a couple of bucks, I went to Pat and Louie's house and got my hair cut. But I was there a lot. Jan was there a lot. They had a big old dog named Buddy that had she'd bring doggy treats to. That was part of her. She loved that. So Jan would go to see Buddy, and I would go down in the basement and get a haircut. So we're sitting there one time. They got this. I think they played cards down there too. And this one light hanging down from the ceiling over the table, kind of like an old poker light or interrogation light. And there's Pat and Louie, a guy that did handyman work for him named Niles, and Louie's first boyfriend. I can't remember his name. Walter, maybe. Pat didn't like Walter, if that was his name. He was one of Louie's paramours in his younger days, and they just remained friends. So I'm sitting there getting my hair cut. I look around over here, over there, and I'm thinking, man, if the big cowboy could only see me now. Man, that was a spit take around the table, I can tell you. But I learned things there. It was not, I'm the least homophobic person you know.
Right.
I don't care what your sexual preferences are.
Yeah.
Why would I care?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And the other thing that the wrestling business taught me was, and not that I haven't made errors and stubbed my toe with the fact that, the theory of Black Lives Matter, it does matter. Lives matter. All lives matter. And so the wrestling business has helped me as growing up in a very redneck, country-like environment to opening my mind and understanding the world a little bit better and being more tolerant of others. It shouldn't be yours or my decision or call, even our opinion of how somebody lives their private life.
Agree.
It's just not, makes no sense. And so, like I said before, I only got so much room in my carry-on, and I'm not packing a son of a bitch of negatives.
Last one, and this is going to be a controversial one. Saved it for last. Dermot McCarthy wants to know, how much attention does the AEW locker room pay to Jim Cornette's criticism of the company, and does it bother them at all?
I think they take it home with them every night. I think they live and die with it. No, I'm kidding. Jesus Christ. I'll be honest with you. It's Dermot, right?
Yep.
I've never heard one talent say a word about it.
Yep.
And I talk to a lot of guys, and I shoot the breeze about what's going on in the business, so forth and so on. And for better or for worse, I have a link to Cornette because we've been friends for
Decades.
30 years.
Yeah.
We were partners, or say tag team partners. That'd been funny. We were broadcast partners. I worked with him in Mid-South with his first big manager gig. Cowboy put Cornette with Bobby and Dennis. It wasn't the fact they were already established team. Watch saw that. And never did you ever see in Mid-South where a non-giant size tag team became giant box office stars. But Cornette and the Midnight Express did that because they were absolutely amazing. So my history with Cornette goes back seemingly in our lives, his and mine, forever. So, people say, you think Cornette is saying these outlandish or bombastic or incendiary things because that's what he believes, or is he just trying to get a rise? Well, look, Cornette's not any different than what you and I do.
Right.
He's got a podcast or two.
Yes, he does.
He's trying to get traffic.
Yes, he is.
So good for him. Pardon me. So I don't think they pay a lot of attention to it. Now they may in smaller circles. I don't know that because I'm not in those circles. But I can tell you that it's not a matter of a topic of conversation. In other words, when I see Tully and Arn, for example, they don't come and say, "Hey, JR, what do you think what Cornette said last week?" Those words have never been spoken.
Right.
So I think it's more online,
yes,
more on the digital side, and I'm sure Corny appreciates all the fans, like this gentleman here, in bringing it up because we got to talk about his podcast here for a few seconds. I got no issues. I don't agree with everything Cornette says. Let's make sure that's clear. And I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything I say.
Of course not.
But I respect his right to say it. Because if we start censoring people because they disagree with our opinions are different, then we really are traveling down a dangerous and badass road. That is the last house on the left, the old Freebird thing. It's not the road to be on. So it doesn't really concern me what Corny says. I want him to be successful. I hope he's healthy. I always enjoy being around him and his wife, which is a very rare occasion anymore because of the COVID. But again, I don't agree with everything he says. I know it's reciprocal. But what does that mean?
Right.
We have a difference of opinion. And somewhere along the way, especially in our world with our great fans, if you don't agree, then you really screwed me. How can you not agree with that? Well, I just don't agree with it. Don't feel it. It's not my thing. So that's kind of the deal there. So I think it's a little bit overblown as far as what it, the how big a deal it is in the AEW locker room. Hey, look, the reason that Corny stays on that topic is because it's working for him. It's working for him.
Right.
The more he says, the more inflammatory things he says, controversial things that he says, and the way that he says them, as long as people are repeating it and asking questions like this, why would he stop?
It's working.
It's working, buddy. And he's a smart cat. He's very smart. And, some people, if he had, it's like Cowboys. Sometimes I think of Cornette and Cowboy in the same breath, which is not a bad thing. But presentation skills are a lot. I don't know how good a commission salesperson Cornette would be, because he's got his way of doing things.
Right.
And there ain't no sales manual for him. He's just absolutely uninhibited, and a very brilliant guy, and still is brilliant. His ideas, he may like to run the ball more than throw it, type deal, but it's what it is, man.
That's just philosophy, execution. He knows how to get it done.
Right. Exactly.
Well, we're happy that we got this one done. And you said that Cornette was headed down a badass road. Well, I think we're headed down a badass road for WrestleMania 17. A moment ago, the biggest WrestleMania ever. And I'm excited. It's our topic next week. This is going to be a big show.
Are you going to WrestleMania, Conrad?
I will not. I'll miss this year.
Yeah, I probably won't make it either.
Listen, normally you and I would be doing some sort of live show, but with everything being so weird this year, I think we'll just take a flyer and say, you know what, we'll see you next year. And I hope that you and I are down there next year doing a lot of fun stuff, or I guess it'll be Dallas, but I'd love to do a live show with you, and that'd be fun.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
I can live with Dallas.
Yeah. I'm not anti WrestleMania at all. I'm looking forward to the next one. This is just one I think I'm going to enjoy from home.
Yeah, I'm with you. But I hope everybody doesn't have that same philosophy. I'd like to see them do 45,000 a night.
Oh, I hope
it's good for the wrestling business.
Gosh, wrestling in front of a crowd. I can't wait.
Let's embrace the success of others.
Yes.
Success begets success. And I just know that the awareness that WWE is going to create with their, with WrestleMania this year is, good for everybody's wrestling business, in my opinion. I truly believe that. And so how can you say that? How can you wish them good luck and hope they do well? Because I like to think I got a little class and professionalism. Plus, a lot of guys that work there are friends of mine. Why would I want them to do well and have success?
Right.
It's like somebody saying, well, all you want to talk about, JR, is some of that damn barbecue sauce. Well, that's one of the things I like talking about.
Well, let's talk about it now. How about jrsbbq.com? I just texted your man the other day. I'm out of all-purpose seasoning. This stuff is legit. I've even got Megan on it. We're using it on our grill. We're using it on our smoker. I mean, I think you said the other day, people are even using it on their eggs. I tried it on popcorn. All-purpose seasoning works for everything. By the way, the main event mustard, it's a home run. The Chipotle ketchup, another home run. And of course, it's all about the sauce, baby. You've got two different formulations for sauce. I don't think we talk about that enough.
Yeah, we got a hot one, which is probably not hot enough for those that believe hot. It needs to be blistering.
Right.
It's spicy. It's spicy, the hot barbecue. But the number one seller is JR's Original.
That's right.
And so it's doing very well. That's what my mom made. That was my mom's thing that she made in our kitchen when I was a little boy. And it's really stood the test of time, to say the least. And, last night I had bone-in pork chops for supper. I had bone-in pork chops, some tabbouleh from Whole Foods, and I got on this damn kick of eating low-fat cottage cheese with fruit, like peaches, pineapples. So I'm eating a lot of that right now. And no desserts, very little booze. I don't know what's wrong with me. I could kick out of that, by the way. I could change that philosophy. I have a booze. If you were here, I'd have a booze. I'd have a drink with you. But I just think, well, what am I going to season this pork chops with? And I got all this lazy Susan type things that's on my counter, all these different sauces and seasonings and spices and so forth. And so there it sits, JR's all-purpose seasoning. And I'm thinking to myself, you idiot, don't overthink this. put your all-purpose seasoning on both sides of the pork chops. Let them sit there for a little while. While give it 30 minutes or so to soak in. And if I thought about it, I'd have done it the night before. But that's all it needed. And some of us, well, I like a little extra this. Okay, here's what you do. Try the all-purpose seasoning and don't use anything else and see how you like that. If it needs enhancing because of your taste for garlic or, sometimes I'll put red pepper flakes, like in macaroni and cheese or something like that. I like a little personality in my food. So, but the all-purpose seasoning is a killer. It's great on seafood. Somebody sent me an idea the other day. That was something else. They put mustard on their pizza.
Really?
Yep, never heard of it.
Me neither.
So it's a lot of ways to use it. And my grandkids, my two granddaughters, are the one that turned me on to the popcorn and the all-purpose seasoning. So it's really good. I use it if I'm going to have bacon and eggs for breakfast, I'll use the all-purpose seasoning when I fry my bacon. It's just a matter of being creative and trying something. So at jrsbbq.com, now that the weather is a little bit more conducive, where our shipping is right back on target and we caught up and things are good. So give it a shot. Here's what I say, Conrad. It doesn't cost anything to look. Go on our site. Just check it out. Check out the site. We always have different deals every week, sometimes 2 or 3 different deals every week. And so we pride ourselves on customer service. And you've got an email there on our site that if you have any issues, you email Stephen Link, like the missing link. And I always think of that one story about the missing link. But anyway, and let him know that you have an issue, and I will promise you, not maybe, or we'll try to fix it. That's bullshit.
Right.
My daddy told me years ago that's all a steer could do was try. You get it?
Yes.
A bull can finish his business.
That's right.
A steer can only try. It's a lot of dry humping. And we ain't gonna dry hump you. We're gonna solve your problem. I don't care if it costs me money. We're gonna solve your problem because I want you to tell people, well, JR did what he said he was gonna do. And so that's kind of our philosophy there. And remember, Under the Black Hat is out now on paperback. We've got some at our site, and they're available at Amazon and so forth, wherever you get books. So that's been good. And so life is good for me right now, Conrad. I got a good team around me and good people, and my ad-free podcast family's kicking ass, and the website's doing well, and we're still very competitive on Wednesday nights. Have you heard any more about WWE going to Tuesdays?
I have not. I know that hockey is going to be taking the place on Wednesday on USA Network, and I think the speculation is that NXT will wind up on Peacock. But of course, a lot of what we do here on adfreeshows.com has become a bit of a debate, because if all of that data is not migrated over from the network to Peacock, a lot of our historical stuff that we do for watch-alongs may disappear for a little while or forever. So a lot of questions about Peacock, but I guess some of those answers will be revealed in the coming weeks. And I'm not nervous. I'm looking forward to it, man. It'll be a new experience. Let's see what this thing's all about.
Yeah. It creates new content.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. You got to continue to create new content. We will persevere. We'll have a show every week, and it'll be entertaining. It'll be fun and informative. Maybe we do more Q&As. Who knows? But there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. No doubt about that.
Well, and we're looking forward to doing it next week. WrestleMania 17, one of our most requested topics, and it's next week. If you've got a question for us, fire it off right now at JR Grilling. Until next time, he is at JR's BBQ. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. We'll see you right here next week on Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
And really, really heavy on the mister. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money, it's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.